It is 4 in the morning and a 19-year-old boy is lying in a frozen ditch in a country whose name he cannot even pronounce. His hands have gone numb. His best friend stopped talking an hour ago, and in his coat pocket, pressed flat against his chest, there is a single photograph of a girl back home. He does not know if he will ever see her again. He does not even know if he will live to see the sunrise. Now multiply that boy by 60 million. That is the Second World War. Not the dates, not the arrows drawn across a map. 60 million ordinary people, each one with a photograph in their pocket, each one just trying to make it to morning. We talk about this war like it was a chess game between generals. But for almost everyone who actually lived through it, it did not feel like strategy. It felt like your entire world quietly going insane, one ordinary day at a time. Because it did not start with explosions. It started with something small, a voice on the radio. Families were sitting in their kitchens eating breakfast when a calm voice told them that, as of this morning, their country was at war. And for a few seconds, nobody moved. The tea went cold. A mother looked at her sons across the table, did the quiet math in her head, and understood exactly what was coming to take them. Then the world itself changed shape. In the cities, the lights went out. Every single night, people taped black paper over their windows because one glowing lamp could guide a bomber straight to your street. Imagine your whole city, every night, simply vanishing into the dark. And then there was the sound that an entire generation never forgot. The air raid siren. A low, rising wail that meant one thing. Stop whatever you are doing, grab your children and get underground. People slept in subway stations. They slept in cellars, in cupboards under the stairs. Mothers sang to their kids just to cover the noise of the explosions above them. But here is the strangest part. Children were mailed away. Parents pinned name tags onto their coats like luggage, put them on a train, and sent them off to the countryside to live with total strangers. Picture standing on that platform, watching your 5-year-old wave at you through a train window, with no idea when, or if, you would ever hold them again. And yet here is the thing about people. Even in the middle of all of this, they refused to stop being human. They still fell in love. They got married in a hurry in borrowed dresses because nobody knew how much time was left. They still laughed. They told dark jokes down in the bomb shelters. They waited in line for hours just to buy a little extra sugar, and then they shared it with the neighbors anyway. And they wrote letters. Oh, the letters. Millions upon millions of them, crossing entire oceans. A soldier would read a single letter from home 100 times over, until the paper went soft as cloth, until he could recite every word in the dark. Those letters were the thread holding two worlds together, and sometimes that thread was the only thing anybody had left. Back home, life shrank down to a single sound, footsteps on the path outside, because a knock at the door could be anything, but a telegram. A telegram meant the worst. Entire streets learned to hold their breath when the delivery boy turned the corner, and when he stopped at a house, the whole neighborhood felt it. An empty chair at the table, a bed that nobody slept in anymore, a name that the family slowly stopped saying out loud because it simply hurt too much. And remember, it was happening on every side. That is the part we forget. The boy in the enemy trench was also 19. He was also freezing, also terrified, also holding a photo of someone he loved. There are true stories of soldiers, on certain quiet nights, hearing the enemy singing across the frozen field and softly singing back. For one impossible moment, two armies remembered that they were just frightened young men, very far from home. But the morning always came, and the war just kept asking for more. It asked for years, years of waiting, years of not knowing, years of a woman working in a factory all day, then lying awake all night staring at the ceiling doing that same terrible math. Is he alive right now? Right this second? She had no way to know, so she just kept going. She kept hoping, and she kept the photograph right beside the bed. And then, one day, it was over. The sirens went silent. People poured out into the streets. Strangers hugging strangers, laughing and crying and dancing and ringing every bell they could get their hands on. After years of total darkness, the lights came back on. A whole generation stepped outside and remembered what a city looks like when it is finally allowed to glow. But the silence after a war is a strange kind of silence. Because for every single person dancing in the street, somewhere else, someone was standing perfectly still, holding a letter that would never be answered, looking at a photograph of a face that was never coming home. So think back to that boy in the frozen ditch with the picture pressed against his chest. He was real. There were 60 million of him. Some of them came home and held that girl again and grew old and told these very stories to their grandchildren. And some of them are still out there somewhere in a field whose name we never learned. 19 years old forever, with a photograph in their pocket of someone who waited and waited for a knock on the door that never came. That is the war, not the maps, the photograph.